listening to
A to the K.
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 A to the K. Wrestle Talk Podcast.
Check it out. Change your life. You'll be thanking me later.
Right, and we're back. Right, so we're going to talk about the best gimmick matches of all time. So obviously these are things that me and Carl have wrote down, not necessarily discussed just yet. So this is going to be a fun discussion. I know one of my choices has perplexed Carl somewhat, and I will explain my reasoning. But we'll start out with an easy one, Carl. I'm going to throw this one at you.
Okay.
And that is... nice. That is the Elimination Chamber.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't think, I think this will be on anyone's list for best gimmick matches, right? I remember this becoming a thing, and we even mentioned it, I think, last week when we were talking about Jericho is actually this is his brainchild, which I did not know. But this match was sort of the best thing to come out of post-invasion, early reality era, as far as I'm concerned. And kayfabe-wise was the brainchild of Eric Bischoff, and has seen some fantastic matches over the years. And because of the way it works, and because you have the chambers in the Elimination Chamber, funnily enough, like they've been able to have surprise entrance before now and ever by just simply blacking out the Perspex Chamber. But there's just something so brilliant about the way it works. I mean, it looks hefty as anything. We were used to like your Hell in a Cell or your Steel Cage. This looks like a really tough wrought iron, solid structure. So whenever they were battling on it or on the outside area or throwing them into the chains, and it looked like it was going to be heavy hitting. The mere fact that people were stuck in the chambers and had to watch what was going on, and I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong here, Carl, I don't think we ever saw it happen, but you could have not even entered the match yet and someone could have won it. Is that right? Or are they not allowed to pin until everyone's in?
I mean, I'm not 100% sure. They might have done like something like that at one point, but I think it is like elimination based. So obviously you have to kind of get everyone eliminated before.
But does everyone have to be in the match first? Or could you have eliminated someone and then wait for the next? I'm sure that's the case.
Oh, yeah. I think
I've never seen one happen where someone's just decimated them. Maybe the Shayna one, I don't know. But when they've been stood by themselves waiting for more participants. I've never seen that happen, but it's a possibility.
I think it might have with Shayna, actually, yeah. I think...
that is a particularly good chamber, just for so many weird reasons. But even that, I think, am I right in saying that was the first women's elimination chamber?
I don't know.
But she ruined everyone.
She did.
But yeah, just the whole setup, the way it's put together, the suspense of who's going to come out next, and it's just led to some of the best matches that we've seen of that era. And it's one of them rare ones where you see it and it eventually becomes a pay-per-view in its own right. Because I was actually going to moan about that, Carl, and saying I kind of don't like pay-per-views that are named after the match, like WWE's Hell in a Cell. But then I'm looking at we have Royal Rumble, King of the Ring. It happens quite a lot actually, so I can't really moan. But we have the Elimination Chamber as a pay-per-view now as well.
It's a fair point though, because now this tends to be the only time we see it is on the annual pay-per-view, and
they don't just go, we're going to have an Elimination Chamber match.
Yeah, which I don't know. I feel like that kind of sucks, but you said then. The kind of thing that I like the best about them really is it reminds me a little bit of the Royal Rumble type thing, where there's the random kind of lottery chance of who's going to come out next and that kind of thing as well. I feel like that in itself is just a fantastic way of getting people into the match.
It's kind of one of the things I love about the Rumble is that sort of suspense and that lottery element of who's going to join in next. It's on a much smaller scale than the Rumble, but it's one of the things I've always loved about it. Don't get me wrong, you can have bad chamber matches. I don't think I've ever really seen one that's been bad, but depending on the participants, it can be a bit hit and miss. But we've seen some fantastic. We've seen the likes of the ones with Edge in there, and even Rey Mysterio in the chamber wasn't too bad, as much as I'm on about him being involved with the heavyweight. But all in all, that has to go on the list for me as one of the better gimmick matches. I think it was a great idea from inception, and I think it's got a long-standing thing with WWE now. I don't think it's going anywhere, and long may it reign.
Yeah, definitely. Great candidate for the list, Anthony, I think.
Thanks, Carl.
So I'm going to see your Elimination Chamber. I'm going to raise you a bit of TLC.
Ooh.
Come Come here.
Nice.
So the TLC match, tables, ladders, and chairs. I love these matches, and I don't think there's anyone more kind of synonymous with this type of match than the three trailblazing tag teams who basically made it happen. So
Yeah, so we
obviously
have
the Hardy Boys.
Bubba Ray and Devon, Edge and Christian, and the Hardys.
Yeah, we do. So these guys, they were in the very first one, so like SummerSlam 2000, somewhere like that.
Sure. 2000.
So yeah, so yeah, let's go with that.
Okay, why
Yeah,
not?
so like that was the first one, and I just remember thinking it was awesome. It was so good, and I think at the time it made so much sense as well because each of these teams were like the masters of one of them disciplines. So obviously,
Yeah,
when
that
you think
makes
of
a lot of
tables,
sense.
you think of the Dudleys, right? When you think of ladders, you think of the Hardys. When you think of chairs, you think of Edge and Christian because of the whole like concerto thing that they did and stuff
Yeah,
like that. So like
yeah, it's
it
rather
was.
eloquently put together. Like that, yeah. That I never really looked at it like that. If I'm honest with you, Carl.
Mm,
But
yeah,
yeah, it's quite beautifully done, isn't it? And
yeah. It just
it's one of
I
them where
don't know.
you could go ladder match or table match or whatever. But no, you can't beat a good TLC. Why not put them all together?
Exactly. I mean, there was a sad time where they did TLCS, where it was tables, ladders, chairs, and stairs, and they had the steel steps involved at one point because
But
why
that'll
not?
never be worse
Um,
than just a straight up stairs match.
well, exactly.
What the fuck was that?
Exactly. But yeah, I just think it's always gonna have like that little kind of soft spot in my heart for the work that those three teams did, and then obviously to have to repeat that again at the WrestleMania the subsequent year and stuff like that, and try and make it live up to expectations. It's every time you debut a new kind of gimmick match, it's kind of the first one is either going to be make or break for it. It's either going to go down really well and get over and become a thing, or it's just it's going to kind of die, like fall by the wayside and die a bit. But you can see, it's got its own pay-per-view name now and stuff like that. It has become one of the main WWE recognized match types. So yeah, I just think those three teams and like the matches they put on were just incredible, and there was like so many different unique things, like Spear and Jeff Hardy, who was hanging onto the belts like while off a ladder, and it's just
It made for
insane. So
some memorable high spots, really. To be fair,
yeah, definitely.
love it. Well, my next entry, Carl, is the gimmick that keeps on giving. It's Money in the Bank, right?
It is Money in the
And I
Bank.
say that because not only do we have an awesome ladder match, right, with a lot of participants, and ultimately that person gets to win not a belt, no, none of that, nothing so simple, Carl. They win an opportunity. It's what they fucking win, right? And this is why it's the gimmick that keeps on giving. Because not only do we get the stellar match at the time, and don't be wrong, like I was a little bit up and down about the latest Money in the Bank pay per view when they held it on top of the headquarters or whatever it was, because of who the winner was and because of how what's the word, produced it become, rather than just being a straight up match. I understand the difficulties at the time, so I'm not harping on too much about that. And you will always lead to some stupid shit like that, like the whole Ray being thrown off the building thing and all that. That kind of stuff's a bit hokey, but the general concept of the Money in the Bank is fantastic. And you look at like some of the ways they've pulled this off in the past, not only having a stellar match at the time on the pay-per-view, but then some of the fantastic cash-ins we've had, like when we had Rollins cash in, when we inevitably when Otis cashes in, that's going to be another one that's just right up there in terms of memorable. We had Brock Lesnar quite recently rock up, win the what he turned into a boombox for some fucking reason. But like, there's
Even
tons of like, I
the
love the
Dolph
fact
one.
that basically for a year until the next Money in the Bank, essentially, they've got to cash in and keep this whole thing going. And I think the concept is fantastic, and long may they keep doing these. Like, all right, yeah, it's difficult to execute who should win because we're seeing this with Otis now, where there's no one he really could feasibly cash in against that we'd be happy with. So it's difficult to have the cash in, so he just kind of has the briefcase for a while. But that's the joy of having a year. Things can change.
That's probably the thing that scares me a bit, because we'll potentially come onto this during the segment, but like the King of the Ring, where every time someone won it, they had to have a fucking king gimmick. afterwards, and it kind of just became a bit of a caricature of itself. Like I'm starting to think that Money in the Bank's getting that way a little bit because they're taking so long before they ever cash it in. They're just known as the guy with the briefcase for ages. And
You see, I think
kind of dominate.
I kind of think you're right, but I think it depends how they do it. Right, I'm not really against them holding the briefcase all the time. It just kind of reminds you that they're the Money in the Bank guy. But turn it into an angle like they're doing now with the Miz, and we'll talk about that on SmackDown, like they're doing now with the Miz, and Morrison's trying to steal his contract and stuff like that. Like that becomes annoying, and like you say, it becomes as gimmicky as going into a King gimmick after a King of the Ring. But generally, when they're just quietly like, yeah, I'm the Money in the Bank guy. At some point, I can cash in. Then I don't mind that at all. I can work with it. To be honest, I'd prefer it if they didn't have to walk around with the briefcase. I think it'd have more shock value if they didn't have the briefcase. We knew that they had that opportunity, and it's when they run out with the briefcase that they're cashing in. I think it'd have probably a bit more impact. But
definitely, well, I think it's the whole WWE thing again of like them thinking that people they don't have memories, so it's like you need to constantly remind
like a
them
bunch of goldfish, aren't we?
every chance you can get. But yeah, it is a phenomenal gimmick match when you take into account all it is a number one contenders match, really. Like,
but the way they sell it to you is awesome, like, and we always know we're going to get a decent ladder match or a fun ladder match every year, which is good.
Yeah, and again, similarly, like to what I said around like some of these previous ones as well, like the Chamber and TLC. Like, yeah, it does upset me a little bit the fact that it's now become a yearly pay-per-view, because I used to love like having a Money in the Bank at WrestleMania or like stuff like that. So
yeah, to be honest, I would sooner they have a Money in the Bank than they would have, and it's no disrespect to Andre the Giant, but I would sooner they do the Money in the Bank ladder match than they would have a Memorial Battle Royal.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not about the Memorial element, the Battle Royal. I'm like, well, I'm a bit done with it now. No one gets anything from it anyway. They get an Andre trophy that doesn't mean anything, like, as far as going forward in your career. Like, most of them actually end up coming out fucking worse from winning it. So maybe just transfer that into Money in the Bank.
Yeah, or like even if it's they want to get as many people on the card as they can, then sound. But I think the point you've made around what do they win, just a trophy, like, yeah, just give them something, make it worthwhile. Like, give them a title shot or something.
Again, all due respect to Andre, but imagine being a wrestler and then you won the trophy and it's just there in your house all the time. Like,
yeah.
Like, I'm just gonna. No offense, Andre. I'm gonna change the face of the wall.
I mean, it's probably worse if you win the women's trophy because it's effectively just a giant vagina. So I'm
I forgot that was a shocking design. That one,
yeah.
Whenever you see this trophy, you'll think diva.
Yeah. So, but yeah, definitely agree. Money in the Bank, awesome gimmick match. So the next one, Anthony, I've kind of merged these together a bit because of their similarities, but
I think that's fair.
I know we've already spoken about the Elimination Chamber, but let's not forget the age-old Steel Cage and Hell in a Cell matches.
Now, for me, Carl, I have a preference on this. So, I'll let you do your run through, but I'd love to talk about what your preference is as well.
Okay. Out of what, a cage or a cell match?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I think that these types of matches, they're so good, and I think they are both good in their own right. So obviously the cage match it's been around much longer, and there's so many different ways. Like, they've evolved it over time. There's so many different ways to win that match. You can either just beat someone up in a cage and get a pin, submission, whatever. You can beat someone up in a cage, climb over the top, and escape that way. You can go out the door of the cage. You even get what happens quite a bit now, where someone's starting to climb over the top of the cage, where someone else is trying to get out the door, and there's a race that way as well. So I've always liked that aspect of it. There was the Bret Owen match at SummerSlam '94, for example, inside the cage was probably my favorite cage match of all time. But you think as well back to how long these matches have been going on. You had Hogan and King Kong Bundy at WrestleMania 2. No,
3.
2. I think it was 2.
I have no idea. I'm just saying numbers. How about 5?
3 was Andre. 3 was Andre. 1 was Piper and Mr. T in that, I think. So yeah, it must have been 2.
No, 1 wasn't Mr. T. That must have been 3.
Nah.
I don't know.
Don't do this to me. But yeah, so like all the way back then, if you think back to Superfly Snooker as well, like his crowning moment was doing that, the fucking jumping off the top of the cage and stuff like that. So it's a proper classic gimmick match that's been around forever. There's been different modifications over time. You got things like War Games and stuff the WCW did, but then probably the most successful modification on that was the Hell in a Cell gimmick matches, and the ones that come to mind from that. So obviously Bad Blood, where you had Taker and Michaels. That was when Kane debuted, and he ripped the door off the.
Yeah, you can't forget that. To be fair, that was badass.
Yeah, absolutely. But then also probably one of the best, craziest matches of all time was again Taker and Mankind in the one at King of the Ring.
If someone had to say to you, what I don't know what a Hell in a Cell is, give me one to watch, that would have to be the one.
Well, I mean,
Hell in a Cell.
To be fair, those guys did such a good job that no one's ever been able to live up to it since, which I suppose is a shame about that gimmick match, really, because you're not going to have anyone else crazy enough to fly off the top of it, fall through it, and everything. So
it's interesting you say that, because I think certain things, whilst the fantastic gimmicks, can't really be done well today.
Okay.
So well, yeah, basically that. And I'll move into my preferences here now. I prefer a steel cage over a Hell in a Cell, purely because I like the idea that there's another the different methods of winning. Like you say, there's potentially that race for if you're both climbing the side, or one's going for the door, one's climbing and stuff. I like the fact there's that element of winning, whereas Hell in a Cell is a wrestling a hardcore match essentially, but in a cell, right? So I like the fact that it's quite different in terms of how the match itself works, but I like the fact that it's still very doable today, if you know what I mean. Like Hell in a Cell, you expect it to be a lot more than a PG product can give you. And I think WWE can't really execute a decent Hell in a Cell under their current PG era gimmick. And it's not really a gimmick, but you know what I mean. Like, and that's me specifically about WWE, I suppose, because like if AEW put one on, someone would probably come out severely injured from it for how much they'd want to try and put on a hardcore match for you. Not having a pop there, guys, sorry. But if AEW put one on, they'd be able to do something more with it. But like we've seen, and they've been good matches, but we've seen Hell in a Cell. Recently we saw the first women's Hell in a Cell, and they were good matches, but you can never reach the peak that, like you say, the likes of Taker Foley had, or didn't he hang Big Boss Man in a Hell in a Cell as well?
Yeah, they did.
That terrifying imagery as well. You'll never see that, which is probably a good thing. I don't know. But it's like, and I don't think we've got it on the list before I mention it, but it's like having a first blood match now. You can't really do it in a WWE product. It's not to say it's a bad gimmick, but it's not something you can execute convincingly now. It'd be like having, I don't know, a match where you pull someone's eye out when you know you can't do something like that. That's right. I'm still fucking moaning about it. But
I think
on that basis, I mean, do you have a preference? Because I don't want to railroad you with my preference, but have you always preferred one over the other, or?
So yeah, same as you. For me, I prefer the cage matches just for that reason. Is ever since I saw the Taker Foley match, which I think was incredible, it's never been topped, and it's always felt like, obviously it's not a letdown, but like when you do something like that, I think it was like the second or third Hell in a Cell ever, and that was it. And then they've tried countless times to do others, and they're just never as good. Whereas for me, like cage matches, as you said, like you can still do them today really, really well. And I think even as recently as Cody Wardlow, where Cody did the fucking moonsault off the top of the cage and stuff like that. Like, they're just so good, like as a match type. But yeah, for me, cage matches definitely outweigh Hell in a Cells, just for the variety of what you can do, I guess.
No, yeah, I totally agree. Obviously, just it's one of the, I have nothing against the Hell in a Cell match, but like if we could only pick one, I think it was the best idea to combine the two. If we could only pick one match type to put in this list, I would have to stay the steel cage over Hell in a Cell.
Yeah.
Cool. So your next one, Carl. Was that your one? Is it my next one?
Your next one.
I've lost track. What number are we on, guys? Help me out.
1, 2, 3,
Jersey,
4, 5.
Right. So, Carl, this one I'm struggling a bit with, in the sense of like, I don't know if this is specifically a match type, so I'm going to apologize now, right? Because I've put a hardcore match, because I'm utterly convinced this is a match type. This is a gimmick, right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
But then, like when you look at it, when you try and research it, they sort of categorize anything where there are no disqualifications, you can use weapons, they set shit on fire, as a hardcore match. So it's not necessarily the same match type every time, but it's a hardcore match. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know if I might be a little off point here calling this a gimmick match when it's actually varying match types. Weirdly, all involving Mick Foley most of the time.
I think it's fine. So are you coming on it from the angle of you can use weapons and stuff?
Essentially, what I'll do is a hardcore match will be, or for the sake of this list, is when they just throw the rule book out the window. And the idea is to just fucking damage each other and get the pin, right?
Okay.
Hardcore match. We've seen some stellar stats. I've been drinking, sorry again. We've seen some stellar stuff with, again, Mick Foley. Mick Foley's been involved with a lot of people. We've seen him, or be Mankind. We've seen him go up against Triple H. We've seen him go up against Undertaker, I believe. Varying people. We've seen, I want to say, Shawn Michaels versus Triple H as well. He's not afraid of entering into a hardcore match. His old trips.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and again, this is probably one of those categories, like I mentioned before, where WWE probably couldn't really pull one of these off now, as we've seen with Dean Ambrose being like, I'm going to get me chainsaw, and you can't. But it's kind of one of them matches that you expect to see some blood, you expect to see some barbed wire, you expect to see some chairs, you expect to see some heavy shots, and no other reason other than our obsession with the grotesque and seeing these sort of things and seeing someone bloodied and battered. There's no other reason to enjoy these matches other than that. So this is us entertaining that sort of twisted side almost of going, yeah, let's see them just try and kill each other. But have you ever seen an uninteresting hardcore match, Carl? Really? Even the one where they were in dresses, whatever the fuck that was. I didn't even know about that one until you brought that up last week.
We did list that one last week, so I'm going to have to say yes, I have. But yeah, that was a hardcore evening gown match between Pat Patterson and Joe. Which after we did that segment, I watched it back again and I forgot how bad it actually was. Like, dude, that was awful. It was probably one of the worst matches ever. So yes, I have seen a terrible hardcore match. But that being said, they so often are excellent matches in the sense of just that level of, I don't know, it's not even necessarily just brutality or anything like that. It's just the fact that it's...
Don't lie, Carl. It's the brutality. It's what you love about it.
It's the blood. But no, like, there's been so many decent hardcore matches over time. And, if we're going to take into account ones where essentially just the rule book goes out the window and it's not necessarily just to do with weapons and stuff, then, there has been ones where they're just... it's just like a proper grudge match. Like, even it went on far too fucking long, didn't it? But even like the Edge and Orton thing from WrestleMania, where
that's the thing, because you could argue that falls into the category of hardcore. You could call it false counts anywhere, but they're going everywhere. They're battering each other. There's no rules. They just need to get the win. But even look at, like, Edge seemed to be involved quite a lot, because didn't he end up having a bit of a hardcore match with Matt Hardy as well?
Yeah.
Or was it a ladder match? Sorry, apologies, because I'm thinking off the top of my head with that one.
I think he had a few. I think he had one in a cage with him as well. After the whole kind of thing with Lita and stuff. So.
Yeah, but it's a good place to settle grudges. Okay, hit them proper.
Yeah,
and that's why
this
is why Raw Underground doesn't work, because they're trying to purport that there's something more hardcore than your normal WWE, which I suppose they are when you look at the current WWE product. But then we're sat here, Carl, with our little early 2000s, late 90s vibe, attitude era stuff going, but no one's even nearly dead. So you just can't appreciate it the same way.
Well, why do you think we like AEW so much? Again, only joking, guys. So the next one, Anthony, I've got for you, which is an interesting one. Maybe might not make a lot of people's lists, but the strap match.
Thank
so, oh yeah,
Otis.
You know what? I noticed that last week, and I've noticed it a couple of times today as well. I am fucking channeling Otis. The amount of times I go, oh yeah. So we're just gonna say it's more Macho Man, because then I'll feel better about it.
Okay, but you're gonna have to make it sound more Macho Man, I'm afraid. Nice.
So strap matches. Like, thinking about it, they don't happen often, but typically most of the time when they do, they're really fucking good. So the ones that like jump out to me when I was thinking about this match type. So Triple H and Rock had a fantastic, when Austin had to take time off with injury and they did the whole he got run over with the car thing in like '99. Triple H and Rock kind of carried the company, and they just had a fucking hell of a year or two long feud that was just them just fucking killing each other in any match they could. And one of those matches was a strap match. And that one was just fucking fantastic as well. But even before that, Austin and Savio Vega, of all people, Anthony, you would never think, ooh, Austin, Savio Vega, what an excellent match.
No, wouldn't.
Their strap match was incredible. So at the time, it was when Austin was still the ringmaster, and he had Ted DiBiase as his manager. And so there's a few different ways to do the kind of strap match. This one was kind of one of the ones where you have to touch each of the 4 turnbuckles. And once you touch all 4 turnbuckles, you get the win. So in this particular one, Austin, was beating up Vega and was hitting the turnbuckles. But what he didn't realize was after he turned around to go to the next one, Vega was hitting them as well. So it got round to doing 3, and they all went to the 4th one. And that was when it was the big struggle then, and Vega ended up winning it. And that was kind of like a nice little way to do it. But I was thinking as well, even super recently, we had Fiend and Daniel Bryan, that strap match from the Rumble.
That was actually what sold me on strap matches, because I hadn't seen a great deal of strap matches, and I was a bit like, how's this going to go? But they both put in the work, and that was a hell of a match. There was some, other than the red glow all the fucking time, they both took a beating there. Can't deny that.
Yeah, definitely. It was so good, and the fact that, they were having this kind of match so recently, and still making it, different was a real testament to the pair of them. But the only other shout out I wanted to do as well was to Eddie and JBL when they had their kind of feud in the early to mid 2000s. They were just that was another one. I think it was called something else. I don't know. But effectively it was
Texas in there.
Probably. I think it might be a Texas strap match or something, but they had a fantastic one as well. So yeah, I don't know, they don't happen often, which I think is a good thing. When they do happen, I don't know whether it's because they don't happen often why I do enjoy them so much, but there's just that, it's just different, and seeing how it's always really good as well when you've got a real coward in there who just has been evading the other guy for so long, and then they're literally strapped
nowhere to go.
On a way. I don't know. I'm a big fan. I think they are one of the better gimmick matches I think of all time.
I think that's fair. Well, my next choice, Carl, would be a last man standing match.
Oh yeah.
Now this is a difficult one, Carl.
Damn, did it again. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's the worst. And no offense to him personally, but
Tucky, oh yeah, Tucky.
It's the way he is. I can't even remember who made that show, but a while back when he is Chris Farley, isn't he? It's
oh god, yeah.
But in the worst possible way, because I actually like Chris Farley.
Yeah.
Anyway, not to digress. Last man standing match, Carl. This I think needs to have a condition to it whereby it's only a great gimmick match if the participants are great. Because the trouble with this match is, and for those who don't know, who've been living under a rock, the idea being you render your opponent unable to stand up to the count of 10, right? Before the count of 10. So that's how you win. They're down, out for the count of 10, done, right? So inevitably, this is going to be a long match. It's not a match you do quickly. Not that and correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, but I've never seen a monster squash that's been used as a last man standing where they've gone, just knocked them clean out and then that's that. Because that would be the worst squash possible for anyone involved, right?
Yeah.
But there needs to be people who can be entertained in the ring for a good portion of time. If you're going to have two, and I'll cite one example being Braun Strowman versus Kane in 2018. No offense to either of them, but both gimmicks were being monsters, and then they were trying to out-monster each other, but neither of them were very technical or very proficient in the ring, especially Kane in his later years, really, to make this entertaining enough to watch all the way through. So it gets boring, and this is the danger with this. As much as I'm listing it as one of the best gimmick matches, it can be one of the worst if you don't execute it right. This is a difficult one to put across. You need people who can work and work well. Good example being Chris Jericho and Triple H back in 2000 had a fantastic last man standing match because they are both really good in the ring and worked really well together. I think this was around the time they were having their feud over the I know it might not have been over the unified title, but either way, they've worked well together in the past and continue to do so, obviously whenever Jericho turns back up on WWE programming. But yeah, I think I want to list it, but for me, it really depends on your parties. I don't know if you've got any particular fond memories or even bad memories, Carl, but this can go so wrong as well, which is a difficult one to list because of it.
Yeah, for me, for these kind of matches, it's getting like the balance right, if anything, because you don't want to have like every time somebody gets dropped, it's like having a big long fucking count. So it's using it, but using it sparingly to the point where when they are down, you feel like it could legitimately be a 10 count. But yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head with it. Is the quality of it depends on the participants in the match, and for me, I'm a fan of this because of the way it has been modified over time as well. So, it was just the typical, oh, well, let's see if he can get up before a count of 10. But a lot of time you see that people like physically dumping stuff on, like, I think maybe Big Show or something at one point, and they trapped him underneath something, and it was like he
so
couldn't physically get up.
Yeah, I
And
like
it was
that,
like, so stuff like that they do is I quite like that, but I do fear that they've probably done pretty much everything you can do with it as a match. So I do feel like it's one of those ones that over time, it may become less compelling. But I always enjoy them. I always think that they're we referenced Orton and Edge before, like they had one, didn't they?
Yeah.
And it
But
was
when you
very
say you
entertaining.
always enjoy them, Carl, did you enjoy Undertaker versus Great Khali? Did you?
Yes, I did actually. It was phenomenal.
Sorry, I am picking the worst of the worst examples, by the way. You'll notice a parallel that they're all big people who can't really, move around in the ring in the same technical
I
way,
mean,
same visually
I don't
stimulating way.
I don't remember that match at all, but I can't imagine Carly is even capable of getting back up. So
It
I'm
was,
guessing
to
the
be
first
fair
time
to
he was told
Undertaker,
off
because
or something.
this was Undertaker was sort of on the other side of his tenure as well at this point. It was back in 2006, but it was Undertaker was trying to do his best with the match, and I'm not totally discrediting Carly, but we already know he had his issues, health issues. He had his issues with his knees, I believe it was, and he wasn't. We never really saw the best of Great Khali in WWE. I don't think. He's never been a technically gifted wrestler by any means, but he has been better than what we saw in WWE. And this was the bottom line of it, that it was carried by Undertaker, but again, Undertaker's a man who was sort of past his prime at this point as well, and they are both not technically, it's not one of them. It's going to be like visually, this is going to be great. We're going to see some high spots. We're going to see this. It wasn't going to be that, and wasn't that, and sadly,
Just as a
yeah.
slight side note, I feel like I need a T-shirt that's just the Great Carl or the
Lovely.
Great Carl E, like Big E, but
Yeah, well, if you do Carl, but then put a Y at the end of it, I think that'll still work.
yeah, okay.
No, because then people might think you call Carly.
This is true.
I think you should just go with the Great Carl. Let us know in the comments, guys.
Let us know. Okay, so the next one for me is the Iron Man match. I fucking love an Iron Man match, and don't get me wrong.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. I don't want to see them all the time because, as we mentioned with the last one standing one, like you tend to take a bit of time because they are a time-bound thing. So I know of late the more recent ones, because people know that people's attention spans can't last that long. You see a lot of 30-minute ones, but all the best ones from yesteryear, years gone by, 60-minute 60-minute Iron Man matches. And I've picked a couple of examples here. Unsurprisingly, again, Triple H and The Rock. So, I mentioned like around 99 when these guys had just that like fucking year or so of like an epic feud. They had loads of different match types, and they've always worked super well together. But the one that jumped
they were
out,
both hungry for that top spot, like genuinely hungry for that top spot. So they were to be fair, they were both fantastic in their heyday.
Yeah, absolutely. But for me, the Judgment Day match that they had, which was the Iron Man match, the one where Taker made his debut as the Biker Taker.
Yes.
That was such a fucking good match. And like, I know it had a bit of a screwy finish because I think Shawn Michaels was the ref, and Taker coming down and going after Triple H meant that Triple H got an additional win, like additional victory because of a DQ. Then he ended up winning it as like the last few seconds because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a bit of a weird way for Taker because he's just come back and then he just fucked over the Rock. But that was like, yeah, I really, really enjoyed that one. Even recently we had Bayley and Sasha in NXT. It was a fucking excellent match those two had. It was I don't know whether they called it an Iron Woman match or an Iron Man match. I honestly don't remember.
St. Carl.
Regardless, yeah, Iron Person. But yeah, theirs was fantastic. And then probably the best Iron Man match potentially of all time. Brett and Shawn, WrestleMania 12. So this was obviously an incredible match. Incredible. Both of these two were so fucking gifted in the ring, and it ended in a draw, but then they kind of said, no, we're not going to let it happen that way. We're going to carry on until someone gets the win. And then Shawn ends up getting the victory there, and that's like Brett made Shawn that day. And there's that line like the boyhood dream has finally come true and stuff like that. And that was just such a good contest. It's just so good, the fact that you can, and you've even had Iron Man matches where it's not just about like, oh, well, it's ended 5-4 or it's ended 3-2 or anything like that. Some of them just have only one pin. But you know what I mean? It's that you've waited the 60 minutes and then you finally get a pin towards the end. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's good in the sense of it, like when a normal match happens and someone gets pinned, like the match is over. But this is kind of like, well, they've got a second wind, and it's like, well, okay, who's actually going to come out with the victory off the back of it? So, yeah, I'm a big fan. I don't know what your thoughts are on them.
No, I think it's again similar to the Last Man Standing. I think when they're executed well, and you've cited some stellar examples there, then they work really well. I think I'd hate to see one that included like Roman Reigns versus Big Show, for instance. That would be a hard slog. No offense, guys, but when you get the right people, Brett versus Shawn being a fantastic example, both of them being absolute technicians in the ring, especially in their heyday. How can it be a miss? It relies. I mean, it shows almost confidence that WWE have in a superstar when they put them in this sort of thing. Especially back in the day when it was 60-minute. I know you don't see them too much these days. A 60-minute match that relies. That's like 1/3 of Raw dedicated to two superstars, right? That's it's a lot of confidence to put in those superstars. So to me, it's a real boom if you put in that sort of position as well. So like this is the confidence we have in you. Go do it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So, Carl, my next one. I feel like I'm going to have to explain this before I even announce it, right? I'm listing this one because of the potential I think it could have, right? And this one is the, I think, I've been calling it a pit fight, but it might be a fight pit. I don't know, right? I can't remember what way around to put it. But the recent example being Matt Riddle versus Tim Thatcher. And this is a half a cage match. Let's call it that, right? And all right, we've seen this, and as much as WWE was like first time ever, we saw it many moons ago in some variant with Ken Shamrock versus, I believe it was Owen Hart. I don't know if you recall these days, Carl, but we had Shamrock versus Owen in the Hart Dungeon, in a Hart Dungeon match, and then they had one on Shamrock's turf, as it were, and they dubbed it the Lion's Den at the time, and it was more hexagonal, more akin to UFC, but still had the platforms on the top for the referee, so you couldn't go in the pit, And a similar stance to this. And the reason I think this has got so much potential is because it's visually interesting. It was certainly the way Riddle and Thatcher did it. It was a really hard fought match. It was very, I hate to use the term, but very shoot-like, in some senses. And I don't know, for me, I can see it vividly in my head if they did this with Raw Underground, and Underground was a pit instead of a ropeless ring, and the spectators were on the platforms, it would be so much more visually interesting, and I think it'd make the pit fight something really quite fun and quite a gimmick. Yeah, and all right, if they did it in Raw Underground, it'd be a regular gimmick, but I think one that could really work really well. It's a bit different. To the point, you still have to get the pin or the submission, but there's just sort of no way out of it. You know what I mean? You can't go any screwy finishes. The ref's not even there to get things wrong or be knocked over. They're just watching it from above, and it's getting dealt with. Do you know what I mean?
I think the Raw Underground thing's a great shot. Like, there's so many flaws with the way that they do that today.
I'm kind of sick of seeing like two people in a match, and I'm like, oh, what's going to happen here? And then they throw them to where the ropes would be. Then they obviously come flying out, and the audience get involved. Like, that's what ruined Aleister Black and Kevin Owens. Other than it being a shit match anyway, that's what ruined that little match between them, because it devolved into them being outside fighting random people. Like, if it was in the pit, it'd be contained, and then it'd be like Thunderdome. People would just be surrounding it, chanting and shit. It'd be cool.
Yeah, it would be so much cooler. I think.
Sorry, can I just precursor? When I say Thunderdome, I was referring to Mad Max, not the shit that WWE are doing at the minute.
That's a good clarification.
Sorry, carry on.
But yeah, no, I think it's an excellent point because they seem so preoccupied with trying to have this sense of chaos and anything can happen in Raw Underground, and anyone can jump in or anyone can come flying out, but yeah, like it happens so much now that it's just pointless. Either fucking put them in a cage or put some ropes on the thing because they're just fucking flying out every 2 seconds. Whereas if you had it this way and it was happening and everyone was around and probably some on the top, some around the bottom, but like in some sort of cage thing, it would be, I don't know, it would feel different and it would feel more compelling, I think.
Yeah, I'm utterly convinced it could work, and that's why I'm convinced this is a really good gimmick and should be on the list, because in the right context and the right execution, I think this is a really good gimmick match.
Okay, I like it.
Cool.
Well, if you're gonna I'm gonna cheat a bit basically, and
Oh, nice.
this isn't really a gimmick match, I don't think, but I want to talk about it anyway. So
Okay.
the match itself isn't a gimmick, but King of the Ring.
Okay,
So
I get you. It's more of a tournament, but I take your point.
But I'm such a big fan of a tournament in a wrestling setting. Like it makes perfect sense. Like to have a bracketed thing of people facing each other and going on, and the victors of both brackets going on to, I don't know, either go and win something or to obviously just be the King of the Ring, which is what it is. But King of the Ring, tournament brackets, etc. Like that for me, I the fact that King of the Ring is gone, it makes me like proper sad because I would love to see more tournament type stuff. I just think it's so good. I know AEW have done something recently with the women's tag tournament, and I know on NXT you see a couple of things here and there. And I think to a degree we even saw, was it for the IC title
Yeah,
stuff?
well, IC title was done better. That was a really good tournament bracket. NXT I had issue with because it got chaotic. For the cruiserweight title, I was like, what? They made that a bit harder to follow than it should have been.
Best of 3 type thing, wasn't it?
Best of 3 across like a series of different people. I'm like, I don't even know who's in the fucking final anymore. just carry on. The IC title was straightforward bracket. You know what I mean? And it worked exactly how it needed to work. And yeah, that was quite a recent one that I thought was good. Like I said, the AEW women's tournament was good as well. But no, I don't think that's cheating. Carl, King of the Ring was a good gimmick.
Yeah, just bring it back. Bring tournament brackets back.
Plus, if you don't bring King of the Ring back, then we're stuck with Corbin.
Exactly. He can't be the last king. You know what I mean? Can't happen.
That's a gimmick in itself, isn't it? The last king Corbin.
Oh God. we just give them ammunition to stretch this one out even further. Yeah. But
then he'll become old King Corbin. Anyway, no, I'm with you on that, and I think this is the issue with King of the Ring. And not to steal from your point, because I'm sure it was a point you're going to make, but turning it into a gimmick afterwards is probably the downfall of King of the Ring.
Yeah.
Case in point being Stone Cold Steve Austin won King of the Ring, never turned it into a gimmick. Mm-hmm. Still fantastic win, fantastic. It goes up in the all-time great moments in winning, actually, and because that was the birth of 316, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Can't get any better than those moments, man.
Exactly. So it is a shame, which is why whether we call it King of the Ring, whether we call it tournament brackets, whatever we want to call it, I think the wrestling business is missing something like that as a staple. It's like something that is a considered thought about bracketed kind of tournament where you create a number of different interesting matchups where you don't have to spend months and months trying to build up this big massive feud. You could just put 2 guys against each other for like the first time ever and just be like, holy shit, like this is going to be awesome.
I'm surprised WWE don't like them more for that reason, because it gives you the chance to get people up against each other without any real reason. Do you know what I mean? It lets you test the waters a little bit in a lot of senses.
Yeah, I don't know whether maybe they're scared of it because they can't even just have a match finish of normal circumstances these days. There always has to be some sort of DQ or no contest
shenanigans.
But there's been times in these tournament brackets where something's happened and by default the one who was going to go up gets a bye into the next round and stuff. So you can still do things like that if needs be. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like the wrestling business is missing like tournaments.
I agree. So, didn't we have the TNT title being in the tournament initially as well?
Yeah.
That was a really good tournament.
Yeah, it's quite funny really because I'm here like fuming about it because we don't have enough tournaments and I've just listed about 4.
3 this year.
So, you know what I mean? But,
3 isn't enough, we want 4.
No, I just think that they make so much sense, whether it's for a title or whether it's for a title shot or whether it's for, the title of King of the Ring.
I mean, to be honest, I think like personally, I think it works better when there's a proper title on the line. Like, I don't think they ever work as well when you just winning like a trophy. No offense to the trophies, it's cool to say I've won King of the Ring, but look at like the greatest Royal Rumble. What did you win at the end of it? You won a belt, but it wasn't a proper belt because you don't get to wear it, or it's not a title. It's just a commemorative belt. It's like, what have you truly won then? Like, you don't even really get any because it's all scripted and story based. You don't really get any esteem from it. It's like having it's like WWE trying to introduce some sort of equivalent of a Super Bowl ring. It's just not really going to work, is it? If like doesn't mean something to them. And I feel like that's the kind of thing. It's like, oh yeah, it's a nice trophy and all, but
Although, and not to go back to AEW again, but like they had the battle royal, didn't they, for the fucking Dynamite Diamond ring?
yeah, I didn't even mean to do that, but yeah, they did.
And like that hasn't just been a throwaway thing. Like it's involved it was involved in the reason he potentially lost his opportunity at the title. So it's like,
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They don't just throw it away, which I don't know. I just prefer stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. And you might be thinking, that's 10, we're done. Let's crack on with This Week in Wrestling. We'll hold your horses. Because Carl and I, when coming up with this list, couldn't agree on who got to talk about this one. So we're both going to do it. So we're having a extra bonus number 11. And I don't want this to be discredited being number 11, because if we were to do this as a top 10, this would definitely be number 1, right?
Oh, yeah.
Best gimmick match ever conceived and always will be is the Royal Rumble.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
And I've said it before, I will say it again. In fact, our podcast started as Rumble Talk. Not like it was never forever going to be that, but the first show we ever did was Rumble Talk, because we'd watched the Royal Rumble and we were like, we're doing a fucking podcast because
the pilot episode was titled Rumble Talk.
Season 0, episodes 1, 2, and 3 are Rumble Talk. Now, all right, we didn't really know what to say or what to do at that point, but nevertheless, that's what inspired this podcast. So how can we not list it in the best gimmick matches of all time?
Yeah,
I've said it then. I've said it a few times since, and I will say it again now, Carl. I have never seen a bad Royal Rumble.
Well, yeah, there isn't one. There like really isn't one. I mean, actually, there was probably maybe like 1995 or 1996 was the only one I can ever recall that was just shit.
Was it though? Like, was it bad? Like, I always look at a Royal Rumble like kind of like ice cream. It's like, even the worst ice cream we've had, still nice ice. It's still ice cream.
I mean, that is true. Yeah.
Just the concept of the match itself is always going to be fun on some level, is the point I'm making. But I never saw 95, Carl. That was a little bit before my time, so that could be the one that proves it.
So yeah, I don't want to say it was definitely 1995, but there was a point around that time where, like, there was no surprise entrance. There was no, like, even the people in the match were like, Z-listers. There was the roster at the time sucked, so it was just, oh, this guy's come down. It was like, well, obviously he's not going to win because he's a nobody. So, but we're talking about the best gimmick matches here, so I don't want to harp on around the only one, if any.
And that, to be fair, like, there's certain expectations, I think, especially now with Royal Rumbles. Like, we always expect a surprise return or a surprise entrant in some way, and it doesn't ruin the match, but it's a little disappointing when you don't get something, or you don't get what you were thinking, or it wasn't that big a return or something like that. But I mean, when was the last time that happened to us?
Well, exactly.
Quite spoiled, really. We had like AJ Styles debuting, we've had Edge return, and we've had in recent years has been crazy cool stuff. So we can't really, we always get spoiled with that. I suppose now they always make sure they pull out the all the stops when it comes to returns or surprise entries. Because am I right in saying, didn't we have like Hurricane Helms like rock up on one of them, but he never came back. He just turned up for the Royal Rumble. So it was like surprise, and it was cool. It was fun, but he didn't have to make a full return for it. So they even do stuff like that now.
Well, that was it. We had Road Dogg, we had Rob Van Dam not too long ago. It was like, I don't know. It's just nice to see people crop back up again. Like I still remember, I think it was Royal Rumble 2002. And you had Goldust, I think, came back. Mr. Perfect came back out of nowhere, and it was just like there was so many guys who just came in, and I was just like, "Holy shit!" Like, obviously, Perfect was obviously the icing on the cake for that. But
and one of the more memorable moments, like in recent years, has been like John Cena returning He returned off his injury, didn't he, at the Royal Rumble, won it, and went on to win the belt because he's the champ. So that's what the champ does. I think Batista made a big return there as well, didn't he? Or did he just win it? I can't fucking remember. But nevertheless, we always see some great sort of returns, some great matches. But when do you ever get a bad Royal Rumble? They're always entertaining. We get used to certain things. We get used to certain things like Kofi, which we never got this year. I wasn't overly upset with it, but we never got this year. With Kofi trying to make a mad dash back into the ring and stuff. They're always good. Even the worst one for me, when fucking Roman Reigns decided he had a fucking boo-boo and went and sat backstage for most of the match and then still fucking won it. As much as that annoys me, it's still a good Royal Rumble.
Yeah, no, I think you've gone on record as saying that you probably prefer the Rumble to Mania.
I would go as far as saying that is my pay-per-view of the year. In all fairness,
yeah, and it's an incredible match, and you've got the kind of spectacle of people returning. You've got the whole. It's especially when it's like a proper star-studded one as well, and you legitimately don't know who is going to be the one that wins it. But the extra bonus with the Royal Rumble is you can do things where, like, I think like the Undertaker got eliminated by Maven one year, and it was like you would never book really the Undertaker to lose a match to Maven, but it was just like you can do stuff, surprising things like that.
Do you remember that? Because then, like, we had nearly 5-10 minutes of Undertaker just beating their shit out of Maven outside. They were both eliminated at that point. But he just went for
and the camera fucked up and like zoomed right in on them as Taker was fucking blading him, and it was like, oh
yeah,
no.
that didn't help. But like even the mad stuff that was kind of pointless. Like I can't remember what year it was, whether it was this year or the year before. We had Jeff Jarrett randomly turning up, the old Double J, and you're like, well, that's different, but it's still fun.
Exactly. Like I think didn't. Like Beth Phoenix entered it one year. I think Karma might have entered it or something at one point. Like,
we tend to get Molly Holly for she's done both because we've only had 2 women's Royal Rumbles, haven't they? And Molly Holly's turned up for both.
Yeah.
I think we had Lita turn up for one. Trish Stratus turned up. All it's always good fun. Always good fun. And we might not always be happy about the person who wins, but that's not the Royal Rumble's fault.
No. But yeah, I mean, it's one of them. Like, there's a level of excitement I think that can't really be matched by anything else. But it's a different one. Like for me, WrestleMania is still the mecca, and it's because there's that. It's the thing that you've spent all year trying to build up towards.
The thing is, Carl, like I can't deny it in a lot of senses. Like as much as like the Royal Rumble is my favorite pay-per-view, the Royal Rumble is self-proclaimed the start of the road to WrestleMania.
Yeah,
it's the kickoff to that build-up. And you can't, like, that is what sets up everything for Mania in a lot of senses. Like, we have our winner of the Royal Rumble. We know who's going to be main event in WrestleMania.
Yeah.
It's, so you can't, like, I can't take anything away from Mania for that. You know what I mean?
No, definitely not. But yeah, I just think, though, that there's still, regardless of that, like, obviously, WrestleMania, the big spectacle and things, like, there's a level of excitement that isn't matched even by WrestleMania about the Royal Rumble. And it's the unknown of who's going to turn up or who's going to win it, and just I don't know. It's a fucking awesome event, and it's one that we absolutely love. And as you said, it was what we enjoyed it that much. That's what led to us going, we should like talk about wrestling. And then we didn't realize that for most of the year wrestling is shit.
And also we didn't realize that like literally like that was the only one we were going to do that wasn't in the pandemic.
Yes,
that was probably the last live thing we saw.
Yeah.
And then pandemic. So
God, no. Is it our fault?
This is very much a COVID podcast, really.
Is it our fault? Are we responsible for this?
I think,
as soon as we decided to do a podcast. Okay. Yeah, so I think we're both very firmly agreed that Royal Rumble is fucking awesome and it's the greatest gimmick match of all time.
Undoubtedly. Yeah, that's a word. I'm going with that.
Yeah, it's a word. We'll go with that.
So that, guys, is the best gimmick matches of all time. Did we list your favourite? Did we not list your favourite? Are you mad? Do you want to tell us about it? Why not comment? Join in, participate, like, share, tell your friends.
WWE superstar Cedric Alexander here to ask you one question. Or maybe many questions. Do you like wrestling? Do you like podcasts? Do you have YouTube? Do you have Spotify? Do you have any other form of social media where you can listen to podcasts? Well, then you should be listening to A to the K Wrestle Talk. That's A to the K Wrestle Talk. Listen to it because I said so.